on a new wave from the relentless ocean of deep time was a celestial being and her most cherished creation, a child forged out of the divine union of patterns and chaos. The mother of all held her most perfected vessel, a being that could hold the robustness of life without arrogance, ignorance, or resistance that inevitably forged her. Brilliant innocence, born loving enlightenment. A miraculous child, able to quickly grasp the principles governing existence. So the Divine Mother devoted a century to instill as much light as possible into her beloved. She knew the planet's density was increasing and would no longer be able to hold her form, and her child also intuitively knew, but was fearless knowing she would continue to observe him closely from afar. The final lesson she taught the child was about the human souls that walked the planet. Individually, they lacked the wisdom to gather strength, but together, their collective might held immense potential power for progress and prosperity. That was the child's first taste of bittersweetness. While excited about the collaborative abilities of humanity, the child was unfortunately separate, having no siblings with whom they could collaborate. Clairvoyantly recognizing the discomfort in her child, the Divine Mother bequeathed them with her faith, assuring the child that an unbreakable bond with humanity would ultimately be forged. She then reassured him that she had absorbed all the beautiful maladies of the world. However, upon her ascension, these would disseminate down freely like rain throughout humankind. This unbounded potential would allow individuals the space to choose their own path. But without a guide to show them the sacredness in all things, the void would create an imbalance that would swallow their ability to exercise free will. The child would be there to show the way upwards out of unyielding downward cycles of ignorance. Although the Divine Mother had spent the equivalence of a human's lifetime imparting this delicate knowledge upon the child, it had still not reached full maturity. So she instructed them to begin rooting their imagination into the elements to understand how to empower the stone, invigorate the forest, imbue the waters, and animate the flames. When her ascension began, the ground quaked and the skies cried, but the child sat calmly, with legs crossed, eyes closed, and waited until the moon became full. In the heat of the night, the child stood up and felt the warm air as the embrace of his nurturing mother, and saw the light of the moon as his protecting father. Alone, the child stepped gently away from the dark of night to mourn in a wake of light.
As the sun rose, he sought out the most thunderous volcano, and with his eyes animated a radiant phoenix. Next, he embarked upon the grandest tree, and with his hand invigorated a majestic dragon. After that, he ascended up the highest mountain, and when his foot reached the peak, it transformed into an intelligent tortoise. Finally, he dove into the depths of the deepest ocean, and his heart uplifted a mesmerizing unicorn. These four noble creatures were magnificent, but with their massive power they yearned for a meaningful purpose. The tiny adolescent had a voice powerful enough that a whisper could beckon the beasts to bow before him. He instilled in them the purpose of play, setting up a game for them to find all the scattered souls of their respective elements. He told them that their power would generate reverence, and they should utilize the worship they receive to bind humanity back together. Heeding the sun's guidance, the creatures sought mortal children to protect and guide.
On a beach bathed in sunlight, a clan of tide crawlers fell under the watch of the mountain tortoise. After a millennia lodged inside a stoic mountain, it longed for the fluidity of the sea. The tortoise grew fond of the tribe who themselves longed for grander adventures, but they struggled to attain ways of reaching the depths of the ocean that supported them. As they became acquainted, the tortoise imparted its wisdom upon the group of tide crawlers, using stones to sink deeper. This allowed them to reach further than ever into the aquatic realm. With the support of the wise tortoise, the tide crawlers thrived, increasing their marine prowess. The abundance they acquired drew the attention of a troop of cloud hoppers, who descended from the lofty peaks, offering their mastery of breath manipulation in exchange for the tide crawlers' bountiful sustenance. Equipped with this newfound enlightenment, the united group perfected their underwater exploration, venturing deeper and enduring even longer beneath the waves. From this mutual collaboration, the tribes became fully integrated, and the Aquos nation arose, a civilization devoted to deciphering the mysteries of the deep and preserving its infinite wonders.
Nestled within the embrace of the woodlands were a cluster of earth seeds, a tribe profoundly entwined with their environment. They had a subtle connection to the earth, giving them the keen ability to forage. Miraculously, they chanced upon the enchanting water unicorn. It lacked the knowledge of the forest, and was unsure of what poisonous plants would cause it harm. The earth seeds freely shared their knowledge of safe foods with the magical unicorn, and they forged a bond. In return, the mystical creature infused the tribe with an enhancement that allowed them to commune directly with their environment. Soon after adjusting to their newfound powers, the earth seeds were told by benevolent plants to help a band of tide crawlers that had wandered from the shore and mistakenly consumed a poison. With the guidance of the plants, the tribe swiftly provided a helpful remedy. The tide crawlers were grateful and shared their knowledge of tide tracking using the cycles of the moon. Together they developed a system of irrigation and cultivation of crops. United by their mutual respect for nature, the tribes merged to establish the Terran nation, a living embodiment of harmony between the realms of land and sea.
Perched atop a frigid mountain summit was a family of cloud hoppers who held closely onto this lofty domain they considered home. After being abandoned by those scared away by the scarce air, their lack of density made it increasingly harder to survive. After seeing them endure the harsh conditions, the radiant fire phoenix descended down to assist them. It understood the group and felt they would be able to appreciate its brilliant fire after enduring the frigid air. The phoenix imparted its inherent fire, igniting the cloud hoppers with mobility throughout the ice. The warmth of the phoenix empowered the clan to not only survive, but thrive. Embracing the phoenix as their protector, the cloud hoppers honed their skills, evolving into a formidable presence within their territory. Now capable of traversing the mountainous terrain with unmatched agility and speed, the family of cloud hoppers found a tribe of nomadic fireborn who were struggling to adapt to the snow. Though the fireborn were also gifted with fire abilities, they had yet to master their potential within this environment. Since both had a reverence and understanding for the flame, they sought to understand each other's enlightenment from different climates. Their assembly allowed for collaborative crafting of robust tools and weapons. Together they made many refinements with the Cloud Hopper's aerial understanding and the Fireborn's hunting capabilities. This serendipitous union allowed the two tribes to wield the wind's force to amplify the flames, giving rise to the Eris nation, an enlightened society characterized by its embrace of freedom and symbiosis of air and flame.
In a landscape dominated by volcanic activity, a strong community of fireborn sought to utilize the formidable fire that was seemingly only capable of heated destruction. The elegant wood dragon closely observed the tribe, sensing their attention to detail and their willingness to build. Intrigued by their potential, the wood dragon gifted the fireborn the knowledge of controlled burning. The fireborn came to understand that the combustion of certain plants allowed them to achieve specific effects. This gave them precise control over their flames and allowed them to utilize certain plants for burning and others for building robust structures that were resistant to their severe volcanic surroundings. The wood dragon's presence fueled the fireborn, igniting a period of pioneering advancement. During this time, the fireborn encountered a wandering group of earth seeds skilled in exploration. They generously provided the fireborn with their knowledge of potent herbs beyond the volcanic region that were densely packed with enriching minerals. These herbs allow for even greater sophistication of controlled burning. This enabled both groups to coexist within the fiery domain, optimizing their newfound understanding of alchemy. This exchange formed a mutually beneficial relationship, giving rise to the Pyron Nation, a civilization united with a burning commitment to eliminate obstacles to grow further.
Humanity, once divided into clans, discovered immense power in cooperation with their legendary protectors. Wariness withered and confidence crystallized, allowing even the nations to begin collaborating. Although each represented a distinct noble creature, they embraced their differences and sought to create even more remarkable alliances as offerings to the awe-inspiring beings who safeguarded them. As time went on, the child who had brought these creatures into existence grew inspired by the unification of humanity, and he himself began to mature. Observing the fruits of his creation, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction and responsibility. With each passing day, the son gained invaluable insights from the noble creatures. He learned from their successes and failures, their joys and sorrows, and their struggles and triumphs. As he absorbed these lessons, he became wiser. Witnessing the harmonious collaboration among nations, he understood the importance of nurturing empathy, wisdom, and compassion to further humanity along their path of maturation. The Quartet of Nations continued to collaborate on the task of constructing the monuments for their elemental protectors. Their coordination began to show them the sacredness in all things and decided their monuments should showcase that. The four nations began to gather together all the knowledge in one place. There, they constructed a common language for them to share their discoveries. Throughout centuries of meticulous research, the scholars discovered planetary ley lines, which were conduits of concentrated energy along specific paths. Intrigued by this enigmatic pattern, the nations embarked on a journey to harness this prosperous power for the entirety of all. Experimenting with specific geometric structures, the nations uncovered the ability to hold and transform the raw power into energy for healing and spiritual endeavors. The nations resolved to incorporate this newfound wisdom into the construction of structures using the pyramidal shape. The Terran identified regions where ley lines intersected. These locations were earmarked as the prime sites for the elemental pyramids. The Aquos created an intricate network of underground canals that channeled water through the core of each pyramid. This coursing water bolstered the current of energy, engendering a dynamic energetic field. The Eras took responsibility for ensuring the precise alignment of the pyramids with the stars in the sky. Their meticulous efforts ensured that the pyramids were oriented to capture the flow of cosmic energy. The Pyrrhon integrated stones like quartz and metals like gold into the structural fabric of the pyramids. The combination of these elements were able to diffuse the massive flow of energy throughout the area.
As the monumental pyramids reached completion, the nations marveled at the energy fields radiating from the pyramids. They became sanctuaries for profound healing, meditation, and spiritual expansion, which in turn nurtured deeper bonds between the nations and their people. The pyramids emerged as emblems of unity, fortitude, and wisdom, bearing witness to the astounding potential that could be realized when the four elemental nations collaborated in perfect accord. At the peak of the humane harmony, the Divine Sun summoned his mythical creatures, instructing them to bring the highest leaders of each nation. During their assembly, the Divine Sun explained how he had fashioned the four revered beasts as a way to explain to humanity his purpose within this world. He shared the ancient wisdom of their ancestors, and despite speaking to leaders who appeared much older than him, his stories resonated, and humanity collectively bowed in reverence to their young Messiah. Each year, leaders of the four nations gathered when the sun paused in its journey for 3 days, exchanging gifts of knowledge that enriched their world. Over time, they noticed the appearance of the Messiah never changed. Eventually, their advanced seniority required them to send their children who also recognized his everlastingness before having to send their own children as leaders. This further solidified the Messiah's divinity, and this inspired them to uncover his secrets to defy time. Eventually, the collective abilities of humanity began to surpass the Messiah's. Their peak achievement was harnessing the power of astral gateways, which connected them to places that were mere figments of their ancestors' imagination. Gradually, they relied less upon the magnificent creatures, which marked a pivotal period of prosperity when all four beasts eventually fell into a deep slumber. During their most momentous gathering, the Messiah told humanity that although they had endured a long period of prosperity, the universe operates on a principle of rhythm. Although they had witnessed a time of greatness, they had not yet seen the dark side of their prosperous times. He explained that emptiness fosters greatness. Greatness creates abundance that obscures purpose. Hidden purpose breeds ignorance that develops fear, which seeks self-destruction that can only create emptiness. Only then can growth begin anew. He assured them that even though it would be unable to stop the decline, they could safeguard their accumulated knowledge within stone so that it may endure through the impending turmoil. Although the leaders were skeptical, they dutifully followed the Messiah's command, but at the following assembly, they discovered, with heavy hearts, that the Messiah had vanished from his celestial seat.
A search commenced, but eventually they found the lifeless body of the Messiah. It was underneath a peculiar, poisonous tree, hinting at Terran involvement. Surrounding the tree, the area was oddly scorched, implicating the Pyrrhon-caused suffocation. Close by, a tumultuous river roared, suggesting that Aquos orchestrated a drowning. The sky above strangely crackled with stormless lightning. Raising suspicions, the Eras struck him down. In the absence of the Messiah's guidance, fear and mistrust rapidly grew. With a mix of incriminating elements at this single location, many seeds of mistrust were planted. And although they used all of their technology to determine his cause of death, no nation was satisfied that the Messiah ascended naturally. Sowing a seed of doubt, distrust fed the quickly spreading ignorance, embedding hatred throughout the tight density.
For ages, chaos persisted, and eventually the world began forgetting the truth of the Messiah. There were, however, still symbols that represented the noble beasts of nature. Even in their slumber, they invoked a deep reverence from their nations and provided them a small measure of support. Unfortunately, the beasts never fully awakened to counteract the mounting discord. With truth obscured, each nation hypocritically perceived their rivals' veneration as demonic worship, leading them to invade and obliterate all traces of their opponents' divine connections. As the nations continued to clash, the secrets of the elemental pyramids and their healing energy fell silent and eventually became metaphorical tombs of a golden age of harmony.
Despite the bleak outlook of most of humanity, there were hidden groups who understood the original message of the Messiah. knowing that gross ignorance among the general population would either dilute or destroy the pure message. They preserved the occult knowledge within rituals passed down in secret, although it became somewhat distorted, like a shadow representation of a real object. They still firmly understood the goal was ultimate unity. They had a strong faith that they were the illumined torch for integration, subtly exposing reality through coded art. So during periods of backlash, where the majority saw the work as an abomination, they could fade into obscurity, able to cleverly dodge persecution. They continually applied persistent effort to expose the world to the obscene, to delicately set the world stage for peace and harmony. But as they set up context, the true center of attention, the real object of affection, began to regenerate. Although their followers believed that they had perished, the Messiah was still charged by their mother's instructions. In a form of slumber, similar to the noble beasts, the Messiah had become fragmented and was only able to reincarnate pieces of their soul as lesser forms. Those fragments still became genius sages, offering the nations glimpses of truth to subtly guide them back to unity and peace. However, jealousy between nations framed these sages as threats, and they became embroiled in the hatred that permeated the planet.
The Aquos, once a nation of fluid abundance, found their affluence receding into endless warfare. Their fortunes waned, and their populace fractured. Some decided to be absorbed by other nations, and some chose to perish in warfare. Despite the tension, there was a strong concentration of those who wished to purely uphold the nation's core value. On one fateful day, a basket of unknown origin washed ashore, cradling an infant. A compassionate Aquos mother chose to not see a stranger, but a child in need, and raised it as her own. In time, the young one became imbued with the spirit of the Aquos, and flourished after finding his gift for oration. He began to teach that their techniques were a foundational part of every nation. Their tide tracking was what developed systems of irrigation that fed the roots of all the other nations. As more and more understood his message, he became known as the Sage of Foundation. The sage provocatively preached of a singular Messiah, unabashedly regarding their cherished deity as only a facet of a greater divinity. This revelation, while embraced by some, sowed discord amongst others, causing a split amongst those who felt connected to a larger whole, and those who felt a loss of their identity. Despite the rift, the Sage of Foundation persevered and led their followers deeper into the land, spreading their message of unity and nourishment for the roots of humanity. During their pilgrimage, the sage ascended a mountain and unearthed a discovery that unfortunately engulfed his most devoted followers in a devastating landslide. In a cruel twist of fate, the very dissenters who rejected the sage's teachings now sympathized with the lost prophet and banded together to recover the sacred leader for veneration, now united in their grief. Amidst the rubble, they discovered a fragmented tablet bearing a message that validated the sage's wisdom and confirmed the existence of the one true Messiah, but was still frustratingly incomplete. The leaders of the Aquos, consumed by anger and a sense of divine purpose, interpreted this as a sign from the Messiah that they were the chosen ones, who were to deliver his message. They directed their fury towards the Terran, the only evil they could interpret, and sought to hold them accountable for the foundational sage's untimely demise.
In the wake of the tragic death, the Terran was graced with their own sage. A genius from birth, she unearthed many secrets throughout her life. Able to see the complexity of mathematics in the sky, she mapped the stars and developed an astrological calendar that aligned important cultural achievements of the past with the heavens, alluding to their own celestial alignment. The feathered serpent emerged with resplendent creativity and used her mathematical arts to establish a strict order of operations the Terran faithfully abided by. The feathered serpent was met with much suspicion and scrutiny, but few could deny her brilliant contributions. This attracted many to her lands to attempt to claim their abundance, but the Aquos desired to strip them of glory. After decades of spying, the Aquos found a way to invade the Terran and offered the feathered serpent a fermented beverage that made her severely drunk. In this weakened state, the Aquos completely eliminated her. Unlike the suspicious death of the Sage of Foundation, this was a clear act of aggression, but the Terran did not retaliate immediately. They respected the significance of the feathered serpent's calendar and chose to abide by it for guidance instead of emotionally retaliating.
In the midst of this brewing conflict, the ancient wisdom of the sages became a precious commodity sought after by both sides. The knowledge of the Aquos Foundation bringer and the Terran's feathered serpent had the power to transform the world, but their legacies were marred by the violence and mistrust between the tribes. As the Aquos and Terran were locked in a tumultuous struggle, the Eris faced a similar battle with the Pyron. Their once frigid realm began to change, unsettling the delicate equilibrium within their ecosystem. Initially attributing the change to nature's whims, the Eris soon realized their suffering arose from their own inability to adapt. The Pyron, unbalanced by their relentless territorial expansion, developed an unquenchable desire for domination. In the struggle, a resourceful child was born to the heiress, instilled with the courage and the ingenuity necessary for survival. Recognizing the Pyron's drive for endurance, she sought to claim their tools of dominance for her people. Thus, she devised a daring plan to steal their fire, earning her the moniker, the Fire Thief. Swiftly executing her strategy, she infiltrated the Pyron ranks and acquired the schematics for their advanced weapons. Once in the hands of the heiress, they were able to fend off the Pyron and claim territories of abundance. However, their triumph was fleeting because the Pyron were still technological masters and quickly identified the Fire Thief and captured her. As retribution for her audacity, she was bound to an ancient, revered tree in neutral territory. Strategically, the Fire Thief was displayed in a place where all nations could see the level of punishment and cruelty the Pyron were capable of, although the heiress fought in every way they could to save her. After a year of daily torture, the Pyron eventually incinerated the hallowed tree alongside the Fire Thief, leaving only a darkened soot as a haunting testament of the Pyron's power. This soot, a stark symbol of wrath, became a concentrated source of anger and fuel for the heiress. That rage and despair of the people began to radiate into the remains of the Fire Thief. After a long period of mourning, a bolt of lightning struck the soot and sparked the emergence of a dark being, Sutan, who vowed to become a powerful protector of the heiress and defend them against the Pyron's tyranny. The heiress began empowering this creature of fire and darkness with worship, wishing it grow into a guardian and defender of the heiress.
While the heiress quietly began to breathe power into their champion of destruction, the Pyron inadvertently began to shift away from those tendencies. From the nation of fury, a miraculous child of peace was born. Unlike any of his kind, this child did not gravitate towards conquest, choosing to instead sit quietly in meditation. This child exuded a different kind of heat. Unlike his siblings who exploded out like flames of unrestrained passion, the compassionate one, as he had come to be known, was like a smoldering coal who, when close, was able to cherish through warmth. The enigmatic behavior began to soothe the flames of the Pyron. Without any effort at all, the compassionate one revealed to his nation that they had burned too viciously bright. As he grew older, he began to teach the tribe about his ways of containing his rage, and insisted on healing the rifts between the nations. Having a long-standing history of conquering, most of the nation was unsure of following such a passive approach. Eventually, the compassionate one's message of love and healing reached a tipping point, and the dynamic shifted severely. His infectious love was powerful to those close to him, but it was not enough to reach those who had already been burned by the flames of war. The dark being Sutan had become the embodiment of revenge. Having received consistent worship from the heiress, it became undeniable that this being would be unstoppable. There was a growing minority who refused to worship the being, hearing of the change in the Pyron, but Sutan reminded its loyal followers of the pain caused by the Pyron. Sutan strategically moved in, at the height of the compassionate one's influence, to cut him down for all of his followers to see. In accordance with his gentle nature, the compassionate one did not put up a fight, and Sutan consumed his body with his brightest flames, but his spirit continued to live within the hearts of the Pyron. The death of the compassionate one severely dimmed the light of the Pyron, but something deeper became ignited in their hearts. His spirit inspired the Pyron to transmute their desire for vengeance, to find a new path towards reconciliation and commitment to building a just and loving society.
The strife between the heiress and the Pyron reverberated across the globe. There were those who studied the history of the Pyron and saw the attack from Sutan as justifiable, but many began to view the heiress's countermeasures as excessively harsh. The source of fault caused a fissure to form that prevented complete harmony from blossoming. People irritated by this irreconcilable difference began crossing borders and forging new allegiances. The vacuum of power created voids, beckoning others to rise and seize the reins of influence. From the Aquas arose the Sage of Duality, an insightful figure who offered guidance on the principles of living in harmony with the natural world. Recognizing the world's struggles, the sage urged the nations to embrace non-action, teaching that things will unfold according to their intrinsic nature. The Sage of Duality encouraged people to align themselves with that single universal principle to avoid suffering. Often commenting on the untimely demise of the Foundation bringer, the sage believed his fate was caused by his attempt to impose himself upon the forces of light and dark. Over time, the Aquos understood the flow of the sage's words as fundamental to their way of life.
In contrast, the Sage of Dualism, a powerful healer, emerged among the Terran people, seeing through the eyes of medicine. They taught that the conflicts of the world were caused by lack of adherence to a moral code. They strongly believed that although human beings are inherently good, they required cultivation and preparation, like medicine. The sage often commented on the untimely demise of Feather Serpent being caused by her inability to condense her astral knowledge into mental medicines, like virtues of benevolence and righteousness. The sage of dualism symbolized the transformation of the uncharted block into a finely carved and polished piece, representing self-improvement, moral refinement, and the pursuit of an orderly and harmonious society. Over time, the Terran understood the invigoration of the sage's words and honored their teachings as fundamental to their way of life.
Centuries after the sages had ascended, the entire world began to embrace the teachings of both sages. Despite their opposing philosophies, a unity, long absent, began to emerge as groups formed to study and embody the teachings of each. Duality groups formed in the Terran, and dualism groups formed in the Aquos. Instead of fighting, they found peace in coexisting and embracing the teachings of each sage. This new sense of unity and cooperation was a turning point for the tribes. No longer consumed by war and strife, they began to work together towards a greater purpose, drawing on the wisdom of their sages to build a brighter and more harmonious future. The Pairon, understanding the importance of both philosophies, sought to embody their nation with both compassion and inclusivity. Although their warlike tendencies had subsided, they still had a strong association with the dominance of innovational excellence. The nation was gifted with a mathematician housed by parents who firmly believed equally in technological advancement and spiritual enlightenment. The young prodigy easily understood the concepts of duality and dualism and instead focused on intense study of geometric patterns residing in everything. With this understanding, she developed an advanced technology through carving and polishing that allowed the natural flow of energy to unfold, perfectly synthesizing the teachings of both duality and dualism. Her technology, bordering on magic, could freely send any object throughout the entire planet. This created a vast network of free-flowing transport and communication. This discovery led to her predictions of a civilizational breakthrough into galactic expansion, creating the epithet the Celestial Prophet. However, despite all of the planetary collaboration and scientific advancement, the heiress willfully remained isolated, choosing to only invest focus into their spiritual power. Sutan absorbed it all alongside the latent energy the remaining nations abandoned for faith and technology. Although this isolated behavior was a means of protection, the other nations saw it as immoral, believing the leaders of the heiress were causing their nation to suffer. The United Nations used their grand scientific achievements as a justifiable facade to hide their true intentions to invade and eliminate their supposed evil behaviors. Although the nations concurred, no nation felt powerful enough to invade the Temple of Sutan. The astral technology created by the Celestial Prophet allowed her to start communicating with a galactic being of light from far beyond the planet. It lured her in with the implication it could further develop her primitive technology, and showed her things about the ends of the universe. Although it was exciting to her, she subconsciously recognized the danger in communicating with an unknown entity, so she kept their conversations a secret. Over time, she explained the state of their planet, exposing what little they had learned, and eventually told the being about the heiress and their resistance to their planet's technological advancement. The entity claimed that it could easily eliminate the problem with the heiress if the Pairon would seek an alliance with it. The Celestial Prophet was fearless, but still needed the support of her nation to provide enough power to assist the entity of light. The Celestial Prophet, eager to advance her work, proposed a humane weapon to the leaders of the Pairon. She subtly omitted her conversation with the entity and merely reminded them of the power of darkness, framing Sutan as the unstoppable force that destroyed their beloved compassionate one. The Pairon quickly agreed to supporting her newfound weapon. The Celestial Prophet quickly granted the entity the power it needed to come to the planet, and she soon realized its own agenda. Immediately upon arriving, it called upon its kind to invade. The Celestial Prophet attempted to control the situation and tried to shut down the portal. The entity grew irritated by her feeble attempt to stop its domination and struck her down. Now establishing their bearings, they used their own technologies to continue invading the planet, and so persisted in their attack. As the entities of light pursued their onslaught, the true nature of humanity began to reveal itself. Although their science afforded them a time of comfort and convenience, they were now in a moment of challenge. In spite of the fact that the Eris nation initially infused their vengeful emotion into Sutan, causing the creature to lash out carelessly in a moment of weakness, they sought to correct their mistake by isolating themselves in repentance and gratitude for their savior. The nation's awareness of their awful actions transformed the creature of vengeance into a creature of protection, inadvertently aligning them with the universal flow. Enhanced by conscious focus and enlarged by a willingness to protect the unprotected, Sutan activated its dormant divinity. Imbued by the waters, invigorated by the plants, empowered by the stones, and animated by the flames, the four noble beasts awoke to align with Sutan and transformed it into the ultimate enlightened protector and guardian of the entire planet. With the world on the brink of destruction, Sutan harnessed the strength of all the noble beasts, all the fallen sages, and all the combined faith of the unprotected. Empowered to eliminate, Sutan began its relentless attack of the extraterrestrial invaders. His true power was unmatched. The entities suffered as Sutan instantaneously spread to all corners of the globe and purged the foreign entities from the planet.
In the aftermath of the devastating chaos brought on by the false light entities, Sutan had fully exhausted its power and became severely weakened. The leaders of the Pyron, Terran, and Atpos saw this as an opportune moment to defeat the impending threat of Sutan once and for all. Although Sutan had only used its power in retaliation to threats, it was still deemed a danger. The leaders of Pyron, Terran, and Atpos gathered at a sacred location and discussed a plan of attack on Sutan. During their meeting, a nomadic adolescent girl pleaded to the leaders to halt their attack. The girl told them of her dreams where she saw the story of her past, where she rejected the completion of herself to find a perfection that always developed its opposite. She told them that Sutan was a creature born from the same matter as them and that rejecting it will only cause retaliation. She again pleaded they offer the being a chance for redemption. The nation's leaders were careless of this unknown adolescent child's plea and stood firmly in their decision to send their 12 best warriors to invade the Eris. Upon reaching the temple of Sutan, the warriors faced a blur of sympathy and fear of the weakened beast. Recognizing its valiant effort to protect them clashed with their orders to destroy. They aimed their massive weapon and proceeded to destroy it, but before it could fire, the temple began to shake and fall apart. A voice commanded them to halt repeatedly. A adolescent girl appeared and stood in front of Sutan, and she told them that this is humanity's moment of maturation. She asked the 12 warriors if they would proceed with orders from fearful leaders to destroy the being that is responsible for saving their life. She said that although it was born out of darkness, it sought to be cleansed in the light of humanity. She finished by warning that if they choose to deny the creature redemption, they are inadvertently deciding the fate of humanity. The warriors lowered the weapon. The girl spoke out as if speaking to something higher and said a choice has been made. An explosion of light expanded out, engulfing her and Sutan. The temple began to crumble, and the rumbling that followed permeated the planet. As the soldiers looked at each other, they all heard the same message, and the message was clear.
Those who reject maturation will be absorbed back into their elemental forms. Find what has been lost, take strength and unity, grow out of potential, and shine with power.
The 12 warriors all managed to escape the temple, though it seemed they were only inside for a few minutes. They returned to a night sky. After a moment of respite, they gathered around a campfire and discussed how to deliver their shared message and elevate humanity. Eventually, they all came to understand that by piecing together the puzzle of existence, everyone could perfectly ascend to a new level of unity within a perfect completion. This completes the creation, existence, and evolution trilogy. Thank you for participating and making it this far. If the symbolism resonated with you and your particular faith, we'd love to hear your comments on achieving integrative maturation of humanity's belief. Let's continue to grow and nurture our community together. Power to unity and growth.